You know, when Hollywood tells a story about the environment, it's almost always a story about, well, us, our survival, our heroes, our mistakes. But what if that's the entire problem? What if in the grand story of our planet, we were never actually the main character to begin with, right? In that question, it really gets to the heart of what you could call a crisis in perception. Because the stories we tell ourselves, especially on the big screen, literally create the lens through which we see the natural world. So today, let's take a closer look at that lens.
Okay, so let's start with the default setting, the stuff we see all the time. I want you to just think about the last big disaster movie you saw. Seriously, picture it. What was really at the center of that story?
Yeah, chances are it looked a lot like this. You've got your apocalyptic disasters, post-apocalyptic collapse, but through all that chaos, where does the camera always go? It focuses right in on the human survival stories, on the heroic individuals trying to save the day. The whole narrative is almost always framed around human drama, with nature playing the part of the big bad villain or just an obstacle to overcome. And look, from a commercial standpoint, it totally makes sense. It's easy to market, and it gives us a hero to root for.
But here's the absolutely crucial takeaway. In these kinds of stories, nature is basically treated as one of two things. It's either just beautiful, passive scenery for our human action, or it's a terrifying monster that we have to conquer. And both of those roles reinforce the exact same deep, unspoken assumption that we humans stand outside of nature, separate from it, just looking in. And that right there, that's the core of the problem. That human-centered view isn't just some innocent storytelling choice. It actually creates a fundamental misunderstanding of how our world works. It is, in fact, a crisis in perception.
So a new book, which is the source for this explainer today, dives headfirst into this very problem. It's called Cinema of/for the Anthropocene, and it's built around a really powerful question. Can film actually help us break free from this flawed way of seeing things?
Okay, so that big word in the title, Anthropocene, is pretty important. It's the name scientists have proposed for the geological age we're living in right now. And it's defined by one thing, and one thing only: the massive planet-wide impact of human activity. I mean, our actions have become so significant, they are literally a geological force, changing the planet itself. But here's what's so interesting about this book's approach. It is not just another doom and gloom list of all the terrible things happening. No, its goal is something else entirely. It's about how we can use cinema to move beyond the mere acknowledgement of the devastating damage to think about new ways of inhabiting the world.
So how does it do that? Well, the book's central idea presents a really radically different worldview, and it's all built around this concept they call more than human kinship.
And this idea, it just completely flips the old script on its head. So instead of seeing humans as separate from nature, it says, nope, we're just one part of this huge, deeply interconnected network. Suddenly animals, ecosystems, rivers, all of it, they're not just background props in our story anymore. They are active participants, co-inhabitants in a shared world.
You know, a really simple way to picture this is to think of it like a web.
In an ecological web like this, every single strand is connected, right? So if you pull on one tiny strand over here, those vibrations are felt across the entire structure. The problem is, our human-centered stories make us forget that. They trick us into thinking we can mess with one part of the system and everything else will be just fine. But that's not how it works. In reality, every action ripples through the whole thing.
Okay, so what does this actually look like in practice? What happens when cinema tries to show us this web instead of just focusing on the human drama?
Well, the book makes a really important point. This isn't some brand new radical idea. Not at all. Many storytelling traditions, especially indigenous narratives from all over the world, have always understood this. In those stories, the land is never just a passive stage. It's alive. The place itself acts. It has agency. It's a character in its own right.
And this thinking goes all the way down to the very craft of filmmaking. The book highlights filmmakers who talk about not wanting to take images from nature, but to make cinema with nature's consent. It's a collaboration. The environment literally becomes a co-creator in the film. And when you watch a film made with that kind of mindset, the shift in what you feel it's just powerful. All of a sudden, non-human beings, animals, rivers, even forests, they aren't just props anymore. They are active participants, they're characters with their own motivations. The story is about their interconnection, which moves the human drama away from the center of everything.
So, the real power of this kind of storytelling is that it helps us perceive that web of connections that our usual human-centered narratives completely hide. Our focus naturally shifts away from just the heroic individual saving the day and toward the health and balance of the entire system.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this all add up to? It's really about fostering a whole new way of seeing, not just the world, but ourselves and our place in it.
Let's just put it side by side. The old view, the one we get from most blockbusters, it says humans are the managers of nature. Nature is just a resource or a backdrop, and the story is all about our survival. But this new view sees it completely differently. It says humans are just components within nature. Nature is an active, living system, and the story, well, it's not about survival, it's about interconnection.
And that is why all of this matters so much. Cinema is way more than just entertainment. It's a powerful tool that literally shapes our ecological perception. The stories we consume can either blind us to the web of connections we depend on, or they can be the very thing that helps us finally, truly see it.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. If movies have this much power to shape how we see the world, what other stories are shaping our perceptions every single day? Think about the news you watch, the history you were taught. What is those stories telling you is the center of the universe? And more importantly, what crucial connections might they be hiding?